Good morning. Today we're going to be doing a sealed deck tutorial. So I'm signed up for an event, a large MOX Last Chance Qualifier event with over 500 people. So we'll switch over to that. And this tournament has a lot of big names in the Magic community. You got David Ochoa, a lot of pros, LSV, a lot of Magic Online regulars as well. I believe Eric Froelich and Owen Turtenwald and Reed Duke are also in. So the competition will be high, but I'd like to go through the deck building procedure. And the goal of deck building here is to build the optimal deck, the deck that you think will have the highest chance of winning the most number of matches. And that can mean a few different things, but the idea is there's tons of ways to build any given deck, with any given pool, and we want to try to find the best one. And that might be difficult to do, but a lot of what I'm going to show is the mechanics of how to move around in Magic Online. You may agree or disagree with the choices, but it should be interesting to see one person's take on it. Alright, it begins. Alright, the first thing I do is sort by rarity, and you'll have usually about 6 rares and mythics. Maybe you'll get lucky and get a foil. We can cut out the basic lands and hide them over here. So take a look at these cards here. So we've got a couple good cards in blue. Akum Hellkite is good in red, and a land might help out. The next thing to look through is the uncommons, and we can leave the commons for when we go through the colors. So what I'm looking for are cards that are very strong in their respective archetypes. Cards that really pull me into that color, and there might be build-arounds. Titan's Presence is a good one. Okay, then I'll go by color, and I like to organize it so that each color has 2 columns. So I'll start moving them around like this. And then we can devote a column to multicolored and colored. So what goes in one column will be the good cards, and sort of what goes in the other column will be the bad cards. And then we can take a little picture of this. So right now I'm just going to split it in half. And then we can look at each color one by one. So it's nice to have a way to, process, a procedure to look at your colors every single time, because it does take time. We only have 20 minutes, and we have to try to build the best possible deck out of all the different options we have in that amount of time. One thing you have to be careful to do is don't just drag a row down, because it'll get rid of that column. So here's white. So with white, we can organize it into 3 piles, sort of the playables, the good cards, and cards we don't really want, just to see the power level of the color. Smites are good. Okay, so something like this. No real standout power except for Stasis Snare, maybe. The next thing is to sort it by converted mana cost. and put the spells we're interested in one pile, and the spells that aren't so exciting in another pile. Okay, so this looks like what we're dealing with now. We can take a lot of these cards and put them up in these playable and non-playable piles. Alright, so that's white. Take a look at blue. Clutch is a good one. Okay, blue's pretty deep. Okay, no real standout card except Drowner of Hope. Possibly Tidecaller. We do have 2 Clutch of Currents, so maybe these all come up here. Dampening Pulse. So the good to very good is over here. We can take a look at the mana cost. So these cards I'd be very happy to play, and these are playable but not exciting. Okay. This card's a lot better than it looks. We'll usually hit something. Okay, black doesn't look very strong at all. There's no real bomb to pull us into the color. A few good ones, but nothing too exciting. Alright, so one thing is if you try to highlight a bunch of cards, well, sometimes it works. Maybe they've gotten better at that. Yeah, sometimes it won't work, but if you like using 2 hands, you can highlight a bunch at once using Shift, or highlight individual cards by using Control, and you can drag all those. Anything to get you a bit faster at navigating this. Alright, so again, we can look at the good cards, highlight those here, bring them to one side. I'm not sure how good Barrage Tyrant is. He needs some support to be great. A 5/3 for 5 is fine, but not too exciting. Slide Runners would be better not unsealed, but if we have a heavy landfall theme, they might be good. That's about how I see it. You know, the good to very good is over here. Okay, Stone Fury, very good. Touch of the Void. Okay, so pretty strong support for landfall and possibly Devoid in red. Bring down our green. What's good in green? Well, weakest color in draft, and probably weakest color in this particular sealed pool. Infuse. Infuse can be good. I think it's underrated. Yeah, this is not very exciting, but let's take a look at the curve. Yeah, nothing really pulling us to green, so sorry, green. Get out of here. Alright, so now it might be useful to take a picture of your deck, screenshot, and, well, not the deck yet, but the pool itself. Now we've looked at the colors, so now it should be easy to pull down all the playables of each color to see how they match up. And one thing you might want to do is put a little card at the very top of the column so that when you drag all the cards down in that column, it doesn't get rid of the column. Like that. So blue-red here. Blue does look very strong, and red does as well. I guess I didn't show the... what is it? The color list we had, yeah. You can sort through that now. Devastator, not the strongest finisher, but he's a finisher. Kozilek's Channeler. Sire's quite strong. Maybe the strongest card we have in our pool. Forerunner of Slaughter would be good in maybe a black-red deck. And Titan's Presence, while great, needs a little bit of support, and it probably has it in this deck here. So we can keep that in mind. We've also got maybe a way to splash black in the Smoldering Marsh, and Blighted Gorge we can keep in mind as a red card. Okay. Yeah, sometimes it's a temptation to, to build an aggressive deck if you have this kind of core, but it's really not enough, and you don't want to be committing to that in Sealed, where you could just lose so many games by petering out and not having a high enough power level. Okay, clutch. Foil clutch, too. Now, we don't really have ways to ingest things, so the cruisers aren't as exciting. We've got Benthic Infiltrator, Mist Intruder. 1 might be the correct number, if we're going to go that route. Or we could go blue-black. Yeah, and at this point, you're just trying to find the best deck as fast as possible. And the ways to do that are to try different decks, or to pretty much commit to one deck and tweak it and make it as good as possible. So now it seems likely to me that we'll play blue. And black for the Sire. But how committed to red would we be? Coralhelm Guide doesn't seem necessary. It's possible the Slide Runner is just not good enough either. Alright, is white worth looking at? It's got a few things, but it doesn't have as much of a pull as blue and black. take a look at just blue-black. The power level in black drops off fairly quickly. Whereas red has these good removal spells and finishers, so I think that's worth keeping in. We'll have to decide if we want to splash the black at all. How important that is. Yeah, I need 2 or 3 cuts in this deck. So one way to decide on what the cuts are is decide what you want to keep in the deck. So let's put the things in that we are pretty sure we're going to keep. Get some strong finishers. Maybe the Wavewing Elemental is weaker than the other options. Yeah, so how important is Mire's Malice on the splash? Maybe not as important. Devastator. It's possible we don't need a Devastator. Drone is good. Gives us another spawn for the Drowner. Okay, this doesn't look terrible. Maybe the Devastator is not needed and there's enough top end here. Might rather have Mire's Malice. It's easier to set up. Or it's possible Wavewing Elementals is just the better option here. Okay, so before we run out of time, we have to decide on a deck to submit. So this can be it, and we can just, the 23rd card or 22nd card can go over later. Let's see. So 13 blue, 7 red, and 1 black, so where mountains are important for the Hellkite. And we can cut something like that. So we'll have 8 mountains, which looks like plenty, 9 islands, also plenty, and then 2 swamps for the Sire. With an Anticipate and things like that to find the Sire. Sire's too strong not to include. And some good sideboard options here. Okay. So also taking a screenshot of the deck itself. And hopefully I do well in this tournament so I can, you know, prove this method was effective. But a minute and a half left. But we can submit this deck just in case Magic Online crashes. It'll have that. So, just a mid-range blue-red Eldrazi deck with some, you know, elements of tempo here. We can clutch, Cryptic Cruiser, Dampening Pulse is just great. You know, decent removal, Drowner of Hope, Sire, and Hellkite. I think overall this pool was a bit weak. It didn't have any stellar bombs. I mean, it does have a couple. These three are pretty good on the top end. And I think that's the highest concentration of power in our pool, so I'm pretty confident we built this correctly. It could be just a mistake not to play Mire's Malice, but on the splash it's not quite as good. The strength of this card is you have two modes, casting it early on turn 4 and casting it later on turn 6 or 7. With only two swamps in here, we might not have the first option. Okay, well this is it. And I'll probably post this to YouTube or something, and you know, good luck building, and good luck to me.